want to show you something interesting. This is not the thing that you ordinarily see in a Sunday school class. But I had to get this out of my system. It's so much fun. You ever wonder what comes first? The chicken or the egg? It's the egg. Watch. The silk's here. Now, I did this for a reason. I have had several people ask me if I would teach you how to do a magic trick that is not a card trick. And I'm going to do that. Is Scott Wells here? Scott. Scott is a professional magician, and we're both members of the International Brotherhood of Magicians. And in order to be a member, you have to take a vow that you will not reveal the secret of a magic trick. However, in the last 10 years, that's become pointless. You can go on YouTube and find out how to do anything. And I just found out this week that you can go on YouTube and find out how any surgical procedure is done. Which might change your mind about doing surgery. So, when Sherry and I started courting and I would show her magic tricks and she would say, would you explain one to me? I did, and she was so disappointed. She said, don't ever tell me again. So you will be disappointed. But you can go on Amazon this afternoon and buy this trick. And it is called the silk to egg trick. It is an excellent trick. And it requires two sneaky things that you don't see. Yeah. First of all, it requires two silks. One that you see here, and one that you see here. And it requires an egg that has a hole in it. Okay, this is a ceramic egg that has a hole in it. When I first got into magic, they told you how to make one of these. But it's much easier to buy one. Yeah. Trust me. Now, because you've already seen it, and it was a surprise. Now it won't be a surprise, because you know what's coming. Yeah. The ceramic egg is palmed in your hand, like this. Now, I had it hidden on the table over here, but nobody noticed that I had it in my hand. This other silk goes in your pocket, okay? Now, if you are concerned about somebody being able to see the palmed egg in your hand, what you can do is that you can use the other silk to cover your palm. I'm getting caught up looking. You can cover your palm like this and get the egg comfortably ensconced in your hand so nobody sees it. Now, don't come out and say, I'm going to turn a silk into an egg, because everybody will be looking at what you're doing. Don't even look at your hand. Follow the silk. People will follow your eyes, okay? You can cover this up. Then you're going to stick the silk into the egg, like this. You just say, I want to show you something very interesting. Yeah. And then as you begin to do this, you get the silk all the way into the egg, like this. All right, now at this point, two things are going to happen. Yeah. You're going to show the egg, and you're going into the pocket and get the silk, okay? That's it. That's all there is to it. Now, you have to make sure of your angles. This is not a trick that you can do surrounded. usually, I mean, I could probably turn over here and show you all the egg because my body's blocking the back of it. But if I turn over here too much, you guys are going to see, right? So you're going to do that. When you have the egg palmed in your hand and the silk is here, let your eyes follow the silk. Don't do this. Don't do this. Egg, just natural. And of course, now I've seen a couple of magicians from Japan, really clever manipulators, who can make it look they're rotating this egg so that you think you're seeing all sides of it, but you're not. Just don't do this. Okay? You get this on Amazon this afternoon. When I went to Hogwarts, we had a phrase called expellium, expellium, which allowed me to take the hole off the egg and actually
it's a real egg.
Break the egg into the bag. The Lord be with you. That's so much fun. Michael Dowd registration is filling up. Just a word to the wise. We have room for 300 and we have over 200. We had a steering committee meeting tomorrow, so Holly here. Holly is back here. Anybody else on the steering committee? John is here, Wayne is here, anybody else around? You see hands up. They'll be at that meeting tomorrow. If you have any complaints about this class, take them to them. If they had good things to say about this class, take it to Tommy. Remember, no matter who you are, no matter where you are on the spiritual journey, you are welcome here. So last week, I began to speak with you about the matter of spiritual practice and living miraculous lives. And this is part 2 of that talk. So I ask you to be here today, and you are, and thank you for that. If we are to wake up to what is real, that is to say, if we are to see the boxes we are in, if we are to transcend them and be free from the unconscious archetypes that run and ruin our lives, we have to be open, we have to be honest, and we have to be willing to change. Or, put that another way, we have to put ourselves in the place that offers the least resistance possible to our being captured by sacred mystery. Now, this is easier said than done. Evolving into our spiritual potential is something that cannot be separated from our creating the conditions, both individually and collectively, that make evolution possible. Evolution is happening. Our choice is to participate in it. Healthy human life is dependent on a healthy life support system that's socially, culturally, physically, and spiritually. So there's no question in anybody's mind that drinking clean water and breathing clean air and having a healthy diet contributes to your good living. And the same thing is true in psychological and spiritual matters, although the further down the path I've gotten, the less distinction I see between the psychological and the spiritual. So last week I shared with you one of my favorite quotes from R.D. Laing. The range of what we think and do is limited by what we fail to notice. And because we fail to notice that we fail to notice, there is little we can do to change until we notice how failing to notice shapes our thoughts and deeds. And yet so many people are so certain that they see, that they haven't. I think this illustrates how spiritual practice and the miraculous go together. We will not grow in our ability to notice or pay attention without practice. And long ago, I came to the belief that paying attention is the chief truth both of and for spiritual practice. So we start by declaring to ourselves and others that it is our intention to grow, to cultivate higher levels of awareness, to break away from the trance our culture seeks to induce us into, and we commit to learning how to be inclusive, to include everything, all parts of ourselves. That's why we talked about growth, Fowler's growth model last year. We want to transcend tribal loyalties and put ourselves in places where we can always grow and change and learn. And this means, among other things, striving for as much clarity as we can about what's going on, about what contributes really to healthy living in all spheres. And we want to create these same conditions for others, not only because healthy spirituality includes such generosity, but also because it is in our enlightened best interest that everybody participates in this. The dictionary definition of practice is this: the repeated exercise or performance of an activity so as to develop greater proficiency or capacity. And Terry Patton adds to this definition, thank you for that. Practice is waking up again and again and choosing to show up in life in alignment with one's highest wholesome intelligence. And practice is what gives us the clarity, the presence, the intelligence, the empathy necessary to be fully given over to anything that we do. Now, this practice is not something you have to go off somewhere to do, although I will be talking about specific things to go off and do. But I would like you to get it today that spiritual practice is something that's immediate. You can begin right now. Spiritual practice is about waking up to the reality of this very moment, right here, right now. Spiritual practice includes what we do, how we relate to what we do, and why we do what we do. Spiritual practice is about taking personal responsibility in every moment for serving peace, love, joy, patience, and humility. You should have those memorized by now. Joanna Macy says, to be alive in this beautiful, self-organizing universe, to participate in the dance of life with senses to perceive it, lungs to breathe it, organs that draw nourishment from it, is a wonder beyond words. When I first started on this talk, and the one that resulted in last week's talk and today's talk, I was going to give today's talk a life as a continuous miraculous practice. But then, in a conversation with Holly Hudley and Brooke Summers-Perry this past week, Brooke gave me a new title. We were talking about a variety of matters: the state of the world, the state of the church and religious organizations in general, this gathering in particular, suppositions about why people attend here, and about my own hopes and fears for the future. Brooke said people come just to see if you're going to do another magic trick. I don't do magic tricks. I have, as you know, been speaking to the fact that whether we like it or not, we're in the midst of a revolutionary time. Revolution simply means turn. It's the same meaning of the root word repent. You may just change your mind, just to turn. We are in a great turn. And one of my themes is that our living and speaking up for peace, hope, love, joy, humility, and patience, integrity in our culture is not only a spiritual practice, it's a revolutionary act. The story of our culture and of our world is one of fragmentation and isolation. And I said we have to have faith in wholeness. And we have to live out of that faith in wholeness. It takes commitment to grow both in knowledge and information about wholeness, and that's the duality realm. That's the realm of duality. And a commitment to grow in the non-dual realm of wisdom and understanding. So at this point, Brooke said that she had made signs that she wanted to put out outside the doors that lead in here, one that you see coming in and one that you see going out. And I thought, what a great title for this class. The signs would say, bring your brain, take your heart. So I want to try to speak to both of those today. We have to have practice or practices, and we have to have faith. And the faith we have is in wholeness itself. There is nothing wrong with you, with any of you. You are complete. You are sufficient. You may have been raised in circumstances or had experiences that have convinced you otherwise. The practices that we undertake are not undertaken in order to achieve wholeness. They are undertaken in order to affirm wholeness. That's already taken care of. What we want to do is enact this wholeness. And we want to contribute to wholeness in the created order. Our task is to pay attention and be careful about this wholeness and caring for it. We want to remember that the thought manifests as the word. The word manifests as the deed. The deed develops into habit, and habit hardens into character. So watch the thought and its ways with care, and let it spring from love, born of concern for all beings. That's the Buddha. Now, I know that the story of separation is loud and pervasive out there, but you can see what it results in: anger, fear, sorrow, greed, depression, and almost any other negative emotion you can think of. But separation is not our true identity. That's what we're learning from physics. This is the kind of thing that Michael Dowd will be talking about. It's what Ilya Delio talked about. We are part of a cosmic whole. The recognition and faith in this wholeness, it leads inevitably to calm, peace, love, and joy. Just have faith that that's true. Now, I know it doesn't seem that way out there, but it is. So I'm going to use two images today in this talk that I have gotten from Jim Finley. I have adapted them. I don't think he would recognize them, but I need to give him credit that his work, my listening to him, has significantly influenced my thinking. So here's the first. Let's suppose that you're on a huge cruise boat, and there is the biggest party going on deck you have ever attended. I mean, it is the Peace, Love, Joy party. And we're dancing and we're singing, and something happens. I don't know, a misstep on the dance floor, a wave, something happened, and you're thrown off the back of the boat. And the boat just keeps going. The noise of the crowd and the motor, they don't hear you yelling. And you cry out, help! Help! You go down once, help! You go down twice. You come up for the third time, you say, God, help me! You know what's going to happen? You're going to drown. But here's the point of faith and wholeness. Here's the miracle. Faith and wholeness means faith in the love that delivers us from the illusion that the outcome of any situation is the truth about us. Living on the basis of that wholeness is our practice. Now, in the Christian tradition, if the cross means anything, it means this. The love that God is, that is the wholeness that makes us and the entire cosmos, protects us from absolutely nothing. And yet it sustains us in everything. And our willingness to practice means we are acting on our faith that this is true. Remember, practice is not to get something. Practice reflects that we know we already have it. Jesus could say, I and the Father are one, and so are you. Have faith in that. And Jesus had a way of doing this. People would come up to him and they would say things like, I can't see. I can't walk. My child has died. And Jesus would see past that which they thought defined them and say to them, I see the you beyond the circumstances that you think define you to the wholeness that you truly are, and if you have faith in that, you will be well. He didn't say you wouldn't drown. The physics of our time is giving us a whole new understanding of the wholeness in which we live, the interconnectedness, the incredible creativity, the expansiveness. And I hope you do not hear me saying this is literally true. It's truer than that. In the moments when we remember to do what I'm calling spiritual practice, we're acting on our faith and wholeness. Finley says that when we stop and ask, given everything, what is the most loving thing I can do in this moment, in this situation, to this person? When we do that, we are practicing. Peace, love, joy, patience, humility, they become our spiritual GPS. Okay. Now, I can imagine some of you at this point might be saying, what in God's name is he talking about? This is too airy-fairy. So, dual, non-dual, non-dual, dual. Practice is not easy. And there's no one right way to do spiritual practice. We differ from each other in our preferences. There are many practice paths from which to choose. There he is on the Ordinary Life site, this graphic, which is called the Tree of Contemplative Practices. And you can go either when this summary goes out on Tuesday or to the Ordinary Life website, and you can print this graphic out and put it in your journal. Which if you don't have, you're going to get one in the morning. So that you can write some of this stuff down. And have a way to remember it. And you can pick and choose from this menu what practices you're going to follow, but it's, in my opinion, that every life of practice should pay attention to these tree trunks, these tree branches. And they include things like your body, taking care of your body, getting adequate rest, getting good exercise, learning how to play. There was a full article in the New York Times last week about Tai Chi and the proven benefits of Tai Chi. And there are 2 absolutely free Tai Chi classes run here out of this church twice a week. Early enough in the morning that you can come before going to work. You can do something like that. Take care of your body. I love the saying I first heard years ago, no one on their deathbed ever wished they'd spent more time at the office. So you pay attention to your body, you pay attention to your mind. Some of us are head types, and so we benefit from reading and studying head and heart discussions with others and exercises designed to help us grow in knowledge and information. Like learning about the Jim Fowler stuff last week, or learning about spiral dynamics, or learning about any one of the other things that might help us to know where we are positioned in terms of our work. And your heart, you pay attention to your heart. I try every morning to record the dreams I had the night before. It's a good habit to get into. One of my teachers said, having a dream and not honoring it is like getting a letter from God and not reading it. And honoring it begins with just writing it down in that journal that you have or will have by this time tomorrow. Prayer, sitting meditation, being mindful in nature. I have a list of people by name that I look at every single day and pray for them. Pay attention to what your thoughts are. Keep a journal. Know a contemplative practice of some sort. Now, unless you are already a spiritual master, make these practices specific. Schedule them. Have a time of day when you're going to devote to spiritual practice. Now, I have a morning time of spiritual practice that is essential to me. I am self-employed. I don't have children at home. So I may be better able to do this than some of you who have other schedule constraints. But we all have the same 24 hours in a day. None of us knows how much time we have left going forward. I heard of a man who visited a friend of his who was on life support in the hospital, and when he came home, he said to his wife, if I'm ever in that situation, if you ever find me mindlessly connected to an electronic device surviving on liquid, pull the plug. And so that night, she unplugged the TV and took away his beer. I challenge you. Okay? Take a 30-day break from TV. You'd be surprised what it will do for you. In your journal, which you're going to get now, have a list of things written to remind you of your intention to grow in the areas that we talk about this week. Just this week, I read this from Joan Chittister. Most of you know Joan Chittister, the nun, Benedictine nun, written a shelf of book, wonderful book. She said, try saying this silently to everyone and everything you see for 30 days. I wish you happiness now and whatever will bring happiness to you in the future. If we set it to the sky, we would have to stop polluting. If we set it when we see ponds and lakes and streams, we would have to stop using them as garbage dumps and sewers. If we set it to small children, we would have to stop abusing them. If we set it to people, we would have to stop stoking the fires of enmity around us. Beauty and human warmth would take root in us like a hot, clear June day. We would change. I wish you happiness now, and whatever will bring happiness to you in the future. One of my teachers very early on said to me, in teaching me about practice, he said, enlightenment is a happy accident. Diligent practice makes us more accident prone. It's true. You'll get a payoff, but don't go for it for that. So spiritual practice is like spiritual living is, something we have to live with non-dual intention. That is to say, we live life both from the inside out and the outside in. So you bring your brain, you take your decades, every hour there is a gong rung, and people stop whatever they're doing for 60 seconds. You have on your device a reminder thing. You can set that. It'll remind you. I've got a bracelet that vibrates. This moment, this is all we have. And the way we learn to make our lives a practice is to bring intention to the random moments we have throughout the day. So what's your intention? Well, get clear about that. Be clear about that. You can use Joan Chittister's suggestion. And, some weeks ago I suggested that you memorize the prayer of St. Francis, although he didn't write it. That's a whole nother. So, Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me so love. Where there is doubt, where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sorrow, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to understand, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to be loving, for it is in giving that we receive, it is in self-forgetting that one finds, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Commit that to memory. Say it every day. Whatever we can do to wake up just for a moment. We live most of our lives underwater, and occasionally we pop up and we look around, get a breath of fresh air, and oh my God. Okay? We want to increase the frequency, duration, and intensity of those times, and that's a possibility. I don't know about you, but I am just profoundly grateful to be alive and to be here. What a gift this is. What a gift. Thank you. All right? Now let me ask you, are you more prone to be generous to people who are appreciative of what you have given them than to people who couldn't care less? Don't you think that maybe life operates with the same energy? Why are you here? I don't mean in this room, but why are you here? Why are you on this planet? Of course, that changes over time.
Yeah.
I believe our purpose is to grow in the areas that we talk about and hear. And if we're clear about our individual ways of manifesting peace, love, hope, joy, humility, we'll contribute those qualities to the world. A life of diverse practice will engender healthy synergy. It can free up our energy and attention and break up stuck patterns in many areas of our lives and consciousness, creating transformational momentum. A whole life of integral practice allows our fixed identity and contracted sense of separation to be open and transformed by the openness, by the awareness of who we truly are. So I want to give you another image that I got from Jim Finley. And again, I've so modified it, he wouldn't recognize it, but I think I'll give him credit. So if we're lucky, we go along and our life gets interrupted. I don't know how. A death, a new love, falling in love, great suffering, divorce, heart attack, something. And we decide for whatever reason, I'm going to get serious about this. Now I'm going to take a turn toward the spirit. And so we make this decision to be intentional about spiritual well-being. We may seek out a teacher, like you have today. We may seek out a real master, like Jesus or Buddha or Lao Tzu. But I'm going to say Jesus because that's been true for me. Jesus was given to me in the same way the English language was given to me. Maybe that's not the best analogy. At any rate, at some point, I was attracted enough, frightened enough about what was going on in the world after 9/11 that I wanted to know Jesus better. I want to know who was this man? Really, who historically was Jesus? What did he really say? rather than what did people say he said. And so I want to know that sort of thing. And so suppose you're on that journey with him, and maybe it's just been a short time. Maybe it's been decades, but we're still here. I just stop and sit on the side of a hill for a while with Jesus. And Jesus said to us, you know, I really like you. You're neat to hang out with. And I am so pleased about so much that you have learned, how you live. Thank you. And we just beam. He gives us a hug. And then he says, you know, so far together on our walk, you've been pretty much in charge of things. And there's this long pause. And he says, I'd like to take over now. And our anxiety just starts going up like this, because we like to be in control. And so Jesus says, see that cave over there? God's in that cave. I want you to go over there, go in that cave and have an encounter with the source of my wholeness and your wholeness too. I'll wait here. Now, I want to interrupt this narrative right here to say that so far on the journey, the pats on the head from Jesus, the attaboys, the hugs, they've not only felt good, they've been essential. We have had a sneaky suspicion all along that sacred mystery was hidden out of our sight, but we maybe thought that by our spiritual practices, God would herself come out of the cave and give us a hug and tell us how precious we are and how cute we are and say, you go on now and you have a good life. And if there is anything you ever need me for, you just call. And I'll try to come. And you know, there's a certain truth to that. It's an untrue truth because it's the ego's truth. But the ego needs that truth to take the next step in the journey. The ego gets just enough juice from spiritual practice to keep going. But there is this sharp U-turn in spiritual practice. It's not a one-time event. It's something that we rather get to take every day, sometimes every step of the way. That's one of the reasons that I love to read from time to time in my own spiritual practice. Always We Begin Again. This is a wonderful book. You should have it. Let me tell you a hint about this and the next one. When you get these books and you start reading them, don't just read them. Don't mark them. Write down in the journal that you have what you just read, your version, in your own language. I'll give you another book in a minute. But this initial stuff is like when you first fell in love with your partner, if you've traveled down that road. Oh my God, she is the most beautiful, special creature God ever made. You will not believe I finally met Mr. Right, or as one of my clients put it years ago, Mr. Not So Wrong. And you write poems to each other. You leave cards in special places where the other person can find it. You write text messages to each other that you hope to God will never see the light of day. And here's the thing, the ego needs this. The ego needs this phase of enlightenment to the ego. If we didn't have a healthy amount of this romantic, attractive energy, we couldn't survive the next leg of the journey. Because, holy cow, the relationship bliss hits the fan. And you wonder what the hell you were thinking when you got involved with this person. Right? His absolutely carefree, abandoned way of being in the world reveals he is a total slob. And her careful, attentive way of paying attention to every tiny detail begins to look a lot like obsessive compulsive disorder. Except I call it CDO, which is the same thing, except the letters are in the right alphabetical kindergarten. One of my colleagues years ago said, men marry women thinking they will never change. Women marry men thinking they will. They are both wrong. So here's the point. We begin to realize that though this is not what I signed up for, this is precisely what I need. Because we're not in these intimate relationships in order to get. We are in these intimate relationships in order to learn how to love. O Divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in self-forgetting that we find, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. And nevertheless, we're sitting on the side of the hill with Jesus, and he's pointing to the cave, and we're saying, I don't want to go. I didn't sign up for this. This is not what I want. Now, how long do we sit there? 3 days? 3 months? 3 years? Jonah was in the belly of the big fish 3 days. Jesus was in the tomb 3 days. Trees pop up all over the place. 3 blind mice, 3 little pigs. A minister, priest, and a rabbi walk into a barn. Goldilocks and the 3 bears. The Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. 3 is a number signifying big change is coming. Oh, we say we want it, but if there is not some other way, we prefer it. Please, not this. Not this. If possible, I would like another way. The caterpillar looks up at the butterfly and says, you'll never get me up in one of those. And then we recall that night when the one who has led us this far tried to cut his own deal. Please deliver me from this. This is not what I want. But he had the courage to add, not my will, but thine be done. He nudges us with his elbow. And so, reluctantly, we get up and head toward the mouth of the cave. It's a big journey. Bring your burden. Take your heart. One of the most important and life-changing books I ever read was Being Nobody Going Nowhere by Aya Kima. She is a German-born Buddhist nun, and if you want a source that will give you clear, practical instruction on meditation and techniques for overcoming what I call bad habits of the mind, I could not give you a better recommendation than that. Elsewhere, she writes, what we are looking for lies within us, and if we gave our time and energy to an interior search, we would come across it much faster, since that is the only place where it is to be found. So we're just about to reach the mouth of the cave, and we hear him call out. Maybe he's going to say, just kidding, you don't have to go. Or everything's going to be okay, which it is. But that's not what he says. What he says, oh, by the way, you can't take anything with you. Drop your stuff. Drop your rolls, your clothes, your smartphone, your to-do list, your tribal loyalties, your notions of race and economics, your educational status, your nationalism. Drop all that stuff. It's useless in there. So this is our introduction before we dive to the fact that we can't take anything with us. though we may not know it now, we will look back on this moment as the most blessed moment of our lives. Now here's the point. Tar, we have to get up and do it again. Always we begin again. I read a story in issue of one of the religious journals that I take this week. I went online and checked it out. You can do the same thing. I'll read you the entire brief paragraph as it appeared in this religious journal. Remember, our lives are a continuous, miraculous practice. So bring your brain, take your heart. Here's the story. Last summer, Ken Parker participated in the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville. A former Grand Dragon of the KKK, he had joined a Nazi group after concluding that the KKK wasn't hateful enough. His intention in going to the white supremacist rally was to start a race war. Over the past year, he had a change of heart through getting to know an African-American neighbor, William McKinnon, pastor at All Saints Holiness Church in Jacksonville, Florida. Parker was recently baptized in McKinnon's mostly black church. That's a miracle. They started visiting with each other around the swimming pool of the apartment complex where they live. We need practices that allow us to see others past the barriers that we think divide us. There is an urgent empathy that sees we are all in this together. What are we in? We're in uncertainty. We're between the no longer and the not yet. I was part of a group conversation this week where someone, as is so often the case now, was bemoaning the childish behavior of some of our elected officials. And one of the group's members said, "I'm a mother, I have children, they act better than that." I don't know all the details that went into the conversation those two very different men had around that swimming pool, but I'm fairly confident it didn't start with blame and judgment. As I said, what we desperately need to give and receive is empathy, to be asking the question, what's it like to be you? Perhaps if we could simply abide together intelligently, bring your brain, in the impossible questions of our situation and opportunities, we can allow ourselves to be deepened and changed. How to engage the current situation as love has no answer. It's an art form. It's an ongoing inquiry. It's an exploration. Take your heart. And here's where I've come to in my own journey, both dualistic and non-dual. A spiritual practice that is only private and self-absorbed, one that does not lead to our practicing peace, love, joy with our neighbors, will not halt the suicidal direction in which we're moving. On the other hand, political solutions that are not purified by the profound spiritual insights provided by peace, love, and joy, a politics that is not rooted in psychological self-awareness and in truth, wisdom, and compassion, will only perpetuate the problems that politics is trying to solve, no matter how righteous their intention. When, however, we marry head and heart, we unleash a holy force, the power of wisdom in love and action. I hope you brought your brain today.
Thank you.
Please take your heart. No matter where you go this week, no matter what happens, remember this: you carry precious cargoes, so watch your step, and I will see you here next week. Thank you.